Hi, this is Mark from Skywagon University. Today we're going to talk about the model year changes of the Cessna 206s from the beginning to the end. This is a 1980 Turbo 206. It's a good example that we can base everything on. But the production years were 1964 to 1986, and then they stopped from 86 until 97, and then they remade them again with Lycoming 540s in them. This will mainly be about the restart 206s. So 64 to 68 have a chin on the front that sticks out, which you'll see on other videos we've got. It's like a nose wheel well that doesn't have a wheel in it. Those have, 64 to 69 have that. 70 gets the smooth chin. Then, back at the tail,
1964 to 1967, the narrow tail. They have the narrow tail. They're 8 feet wide and they have the Cessna grooves on them like on the flaps and ailerons. But it is a narrow tail, and it is that tail that people feel like is ineffective at landing, especially with a very forward center of gravity. So 68 is the first year of the wide tail. 68 to 86 have this flat skin 13-foot wide stabilizer. That's a big deal on a 206. So just to recap quickly, 64 to 70 are the P206s. That is the passenger model. They have 2 front doors and 1 left side baggage door. They don't have the double utility door. So Ps are 64 to 70 inclusive and use utilities with 1 front door and 2 back doors. They go from 64 to 86. So a P with no chin is a 70. It can only be a 70. So if you want a wide-tail P with no chin, you got to get a 70. A wide-tail P with a chin is a 69, and then they go right back to the narrow-tailed planes.
Turbo 206s are 285 horse with a 1400 hour TBO. 78 to 86 turbo are 310 horsepower with a 1600 hour TBO. And you can retrofit those engines into the earlier planes with a Ram STC and you get a 310 horse pre-77 206. The non-turbo 206s are 285 horsepower and they go right through from 64 to 1986. And they're all IO 520 Continentals, and those non-turbos are a 1700 hour TBO. So there's 1400 hour, 1600 for the turbos and 1700 for the non-turbos. In the same years, there were some voltage changes. So when you get into the 310 horsepower 206s, you get the 24 volt system. 24 starts in 1978. So did polyurethane paint. Polyurethane paint without primer on it started in 78. In 79, they were starting to see filiform corrosion on those, so they primered them. So 79 and newer gets primered polyurethane. This is an 80, so it's primered polyurethane. And this is actually original paint from 1980, and here we are in 2021, and that is original paint. It's actually in fantastic condition. Okay, so those are the engines. Propellers on the 285 up to the 310 horse turbos. This is a 310 horse turbo. You always get this wider chord square tip propeller. The 285 horse turbos are a smaller diameter round tipped propeller, sometimes even a 2-blade. So a lot of emphasis is put on 310 horse over 285 horse, but it's really the prop. If you were to put on this big prop onto a 285 horse turbo, you could almost think that it's the performance of a 310 horse. So cosmetically and visually, you'll see a square tip wide chord 3-blade on a 310 horse and probably not on a 285 horse. So that's another identifying feature of the changes. That started in 1977. 1978 is the first year of 24 volts, and that goes through till current day. 1979 is the first year of the wet wing. So the 78 and older 206s have bladdered wings, and they are, if they're long-range fuel, they're 84 gallons with 78 usable, and if they're standard fuel, they're 65 gallons, and you don't see too many of those. But the wet wing has no bladder in it, and it's easily identifiable by this row of rivets on the curve of the leading edge, the first row of rivets, right out to this seam, are Cherry-Max. They've actually, if you look closely at them, you can see a little center in the middle of each rivet where they were pulled. They're not fully bucked rivets like here. They've actually got a little center in them, and that means that it's sealing the tank. If it had these kind of rivets in it, the riveter would still be in there. So they can't do that, so it has to be sealed from the outside. So if you see a row of Cherry-Max rivets on the leading edge of any Cessna, 182, 182RG, 206s, that's a wet wing. And they don't have the low point AD requirement of the fuel drain either. They don't have any wrinkles in their bladder, so they don't trap water, so you don't need to have the low point AD. So you'll see the smooth corner on the bottom of the wing near the fuel drain, and you'll see the Cherry-Max rivets. And also on a wet wing plane, especially a 180, 185, it only has one fuel cap. A 206 only ever has one fuel cap, but it's inboard. This is a wet wing 92-gallon 1980 plane, and the fuel cap is like 18 inches out from the fuselage. If this was a bladdered plane, that long-range fuel cap would be out there, almost above where the strut hits, a little bit inboard from it. So that is another indicator of whether it's bladdered or not. So 79 and newer is a 92-gallon wet wing. So door configurations on these, a U plane, a U206 or a TU206, turbo utility, they have this double utility door on the back. There's no front door here. So the right side person in the plane has no door. But to make up for it, they have these double doors, which are why people like these planes so much. The 4 rear seats, double doors, easy access, everybody gets in the back, front people get in the front. And to make up for it, on the right side with no door, you more often than not see a right side openable window. Some of them don't have it, but right side openable window is nice for the right side. If this were a float plane and the pilot was busy drifting into wind into an obstacle, the co-pilot can't pile out and fend off the plane, so there's an STC to put a door in here, but it's small. It's like this. It's called the Whipline right side door, and it's made by Whipline, and it means that the co-pilot can get out in a hurry and fend off bushes and docks and things. So that's a nice STC to add. The P206s, as I was saying a little bit earlier, they have a full-on front door here, but they don't have these. And P206s, remember, only go from 64 to 70 because they ran out of fuselages. They were the 205 fuselage. So the P206s has 2 front doors, and P stands for passenger. So there's the P206, and then there's a PT206, which is the turbo P, and then there's the U206s, which are with the utility doors. So there was a few different configurations over the years. So some 206s are available with heavy gear. Heavy gear is just slightly bigger tires. The nose wheels are normally a 505, and the mains are normally 606s. This is heavy gear. So the nose wheel is a 606 in a slightly larger fork, and the main is an 806 on a standard wheel and brake. And that's about as big as you can put into that fork, but there are various options for improving the size of it. These can go 600s, 700s, 800s, 900s, 850s, 800s, 850s, and even beyond that, bigger with STCs on that same wheel, same brake. So you have standard gear and heavy gear, and this is heavy gear. And also you can get wheel pants. Some of them were bought new with heavy gear with oversized wheel pants. So there are 2 sizes of wheel pant that you can actually put them on a 206. Heavy gear 206s have wheel pants which are just bigger, and some people even on 185s will put the mains on a 185 that has bigger tires on it. That's the wheels. Door handles. It seems trivial, but this door handle, can you see that? This is the later spec door handle which you'll find on a 1980 or newer. And you see I can't move it. You have to press this in. It does this when you close it. I'll show you the mechanism. When you close it, it shuts a pin there, which lets that close. So you never have to slam them anymore. It's like this is what's on the new planes too. So when you shut the door, you literally push it into the hole and close the handle. And you'll always notice it's got that T-shape. If it's the T-shaped handle, it's the no-slam door. And on the inside, it's the same over-center handle, but it has to be released by the frame, and then it will go over-center and the tongue comes out. Can you see the tongue there? So those are much better, more improved. So you'll see those on 80 to 86s. So I slammed it. So you close it like that. And there's a pin, when you lock it, there's a pin that comes down into here which locks the handle. So it's just later spec planes. So 80 to 86 have that, and all the new Lycoming Pad 206s have that. Baggage doors on other planes, which would be here, when they have that, they normally have a push button baggage door. If it's the pull handle baggage door, it's older than 1980. Trivia, but interesting. So window configurations. Window configurations are a really good way of identifying planes on ramps at a distance. Like, 182s have got a door and a side window and a flat rear window. 206s have got a door and a side window and another side window and then 3 rear windows. So when I was learning years ago with my ex-boss, Joe Stansel, he would test me by asking me from a distance, what is that plane? There are various identifying features from it, and we'd have a little friendly bet. So 206s stayed the same the entire time. They always have windshield, obviously, door, and then 2 side windows, and then the rear window configuration is always 1 flat square one and 2 little wraparounds. Whereas 182s had no rear window, and then they had a wraparound rear window, and then they had different configurations. So a 206 is always this configuration. So that's something that makes them easily identifiable all through their years. Okay, we forgot one thing. I've changed out of my sweater because it was too hot. So sorry about the continuity, but we suddenly remembered float kits. A float kitted 206 is quite a rare plane. About 80% of 180s and 185s are float kits. Call him back. 80% of 185s and 180s have float kits, but 206s only about 10% have a float kit. And it's not as obvious. There are some features that are noticeable, and they are, if this had one, it would have a V-brace in the window, it would be zinc chromated throughout the airframe, it would have stainless steel cables throughout it, it would have lifting rings on top of the wings, but the main thing would be a float kitted 206 has a much bigger rudder. The tail cone comes out to about here, much longer, and the rudder comes out another bay out to about here, and it goes up about 8 inches. It's huge. And it's about, if you find a used one on Barnstormers, the rudder for a float kitted 206 is $10,000, just due to their rarity. But if you see a float kitted 206 that doesn't have the big rudder on it, it's float kit B or it's float kit C. It means it was sold on wheels without the preparation for being put on floats immediately, but it could be done later. So they wanted the corrosion proofing, they wanted the stainless steel cables, they wanted the lifting rings and the other benefits, but they didn't want to put it on floats straight away, so it came with a small rudder. But when you then put it on floats, you've got to put the big rudder on. But if you see one parked on a ramp, you'll see it has a massive rudder on it, or if you look online and see photographs of a 206 actually on floats, you'll see this huge rudder on it with a big stinger that sticks out. See how these 3 are all flush? You'll see the stinger comes out right to here. It looks almost disproportionate. But that's what a 206 with a float kit is. It's a little bit more involved than a 180 or 185, and it's a lot rarer. Okay, so that's the model year changes for 206s, 64 to 86. We're going to be doing a lot of specific model year changes so that each plane, I'm going to try and cover its entire production run, so there'll be a lot more videos like this. Thanks for watching this one. If you like the videos, please subscribe below. And something else I was going to say, which I've now forgotten.
Like and comment.
Yes, if you like it, comment on it, feel free to comment. Please subscribe. And this is Mark from Skywagons University signing off. Thanks very much.